Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the RUW Behind the Scenes podcast. Now, if you are listening to this on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever, anywhere else except YouTube, this is on the official Alexander Kelly YouTube channel. And the reason I decided to do it on this channel, aside from the Real Undisputed Wrestling YouTube channel, was because I thought I would give my personal insight to an issue that I had with WEF. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me, was your problem with WEF like an actual issue, or was it someone in WEF? Like, what was getting in your way with WEF? And I'm going to say right now that my issue with WEF was a person. There was someone particular in WEF that was holding me back from achieving what I actually wanted to achieve. And I'm going to get into that. So, to anyone watching or listening, you remember Lumberjack from WEF, right? Yeah. He was the issue that I had in WEF. Reason being is because ever since I got there in WEF, it seems like he was always just trying to like hold me back. And what I mean is every time we were training, okay, every little thing, like it could be the most basic move that I wanted to practice. For example, the super kick. For the longest time, when I was in WEF, I wanted a super kick in my arsenal. We all know how basic a super kick is, all right? Who does the super kick nowadays? About everybody, okay? Young Bucks do it, Usos do it, friggin' Miro in AEW does it, Nick Nemeth does it. Like, just about everybody does a super kick. Kevin Owens does it, Xavier Woods, like, the list goes on and on and on. About everyone does a super kick, okay? I wanted to do a super kick, but Lumberjack, who, for the sake of this video, since this is behind the scenes, I'm going to call him Elijah because that's his name. So Elijah was like, no, you can't do the super kick. And I was like, why? It's a basic move. And he said, you can't do the super kick because I use the super kick as a finisher or as a signature. And I was like, okay, that doesn't matter though. And then he was like, to me, it matters. To me, if someone has a move in their arsenal and you want to learn how to do it, you can't. Because it's someone else's move. And if you use it, but you don't use it as like a finisher or a signature or something, and then the viewers at home watch that other person do that move, it's going to make you look weak, or it's going to make the other person look weak. Which, I mean, at the time made sense, but then again, it's like a basic move. Like, you learned it, why not teach me how to do it? Another move that I wanted to practice was the Claymore. Okay? Claymore. Finishing move used by Drew McIntyre in WWE, and it was also both Jackal's and Anthony Steele's finishing move. And for that reason, Elijah, yet again, said, no, you can't practice the Claymore. You can't have the Claymore in your arsenal. Another move that I wanted to practice was Sister Abigail, which nowadays I have it in my arsenal. But back then, okay, this was around the time where WEF was closing up. Okay, this was around the final days of WEF. I wanted to learn how to do Sister Abigail. Okay, because I wanted to implement that into my Dark Messiah character and call it the sacrifice, if we all remember that. Unfortunately, Dark Messiah gimmick of mine never had a match and never will, because the Dark Messiah gimmick, I decided to completely scrap it and come up with the Bad Attitude gimmick, which is what I am doing right now. So I wanted to implement the Sister Abigail into my arsenal and call it Sacrifice. Everybody was okay with me learning the Sister Abigail, except for Elijah, because Chris Nitro had the Sister Abigail in his arsenal. He only ever did it occasionally, but he said he had it as like a signature or like a secondary finisher or something. But he said he was perfectly fine with me learning the Sister Abigail. Elijah was like, no, you can't do the Sister Abigail. If you want the Sister Abigail, you need to figure out another variation of the Sister Abigail and then do that. What other variations of the Sister Abigail is there aside from the standard one where you lean them over your leg, you have them like this, and then you twist them over face first into the canvas? What other variation of the Sister Abigail is there than that? Chris Nitro, you know, the guy who supposedly had the Sister Abigail in his arsenal as a signature and a secondary finisher, Chris Nitro was perfectly fine with teaching me how to do the Sister Abigail. The normal, regular Sister Abigail. So I just want to take this time and say, Chris Nitro, if you're watching this, thank you. Thank you for not being like Elijah, okay? Thank you for actually stepping in and teaching me how to do the Sister Abigail. Because the way Elijah did things in training, and even you told me this, the way Elijah did things in training is not how you should do things in training. If someone wants to learn how to do a move and you have it in your arsenal, fucking teach them how to do the move, okay? Because you learned it from someone who had that move in their arsenal, and then that person learned that move from someone who had it in the arsenal. It's called passing the torch, Elijah. That's what you need to do. But because you're so arrogant, egotistical, and self-centered, you don't want to pass the torch. Because you feel like you are the best, okay? Well, I hate to inform you, Elijah, you're not better than anybody. And I'll admit, I'm not better than anybody. But there comes a time where you need to teach people the stuff that you know. Otherwise, a whole generation of backyard wrestlers are going to miss out. If everyone was like you, if everyone took your advice when it comes to training other backyard wrestlers wouldn't have any move to do. They just stick to a clothesline and a suplex and a few punches, and that's about it. There's your moveset. Can't use anything else because I have it in my arsenal. Oh well, sucks to be you. Figure something out. That's pretty much how Elijah was, which is why when I talk about who trained me in WEF, I don't credit him, because he was kind of an asshole when it comes to the training. I don't credit Elijah with the training at all. Matter of fact, I only credit one person. That being Chris. So like I said, I want to say, Chris, thank you for training me the proper way and not being like Elijah. Chris also taught me a few reversals. He and Russell Cooper. Can't believe I'm crediting fucking Russell Cooper with anything. But both Chris Nacho and Russell Cooper taught me how to properly lock in the sleeper hold. That's when I was still using it as my finisher when I was first starting out. When I went down to TBW, Russell Cooper taught me how to properly do it. Chris Nacho taught me how to do it, but that was a little bit before that. But yeah, that's the only thing I give Russell Cooper credit on. But enough about him. We all know how much I don't like him. And this is me saying this. This is not Alexander Kelly saying this. This is me saying this. I do not like Russell Cooper. If I have to do another podcast episode or something explaining why I don't like Russell Cooper, let me know in the comments and I will do a full depth podcast episode discussing why I don't like Russell Cooper. For those of you listening to this podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, or elsewhere, anywhere but YouTube, I don't know, leave like a 5-star rating on the podcast if you want me to go in depth with why I don't like Russell Cooper. Because I've talked about, well, at the time, I didn't like TBW. I love TBW now. It's a great product. They know exactly what they're doing. And I low-key kind of want to go back. Russell Cooper is the issue, though. But I'm going off track. We'll discuss Russell Cooper at a later time if y'all want me to. Let's focus on the task at hand. Elijah. So I remember one time, this was around the time where WEF was closing its doors. Like, this was around the final stages of WEF. I wanted to practice submissions. Okay? Now, if someone comes up to you and during the show that you are about to record, that person is supposed to have a match against you. If your opponent before the show says, hey, before our match, I want to practice submissions, most likely means they want to do a submission on you during the match. So, it's best you teach them how to do submissions. What did Elijah choose not to do? Teach me how to do submissions. I wanted to practice the crossface, yes lock, STF, Boston Crab, single leg Boston Crab. And Elijah just said, we'll practice submissions on another time. Did we have another time? No. That's because WEF shut down. Also, little side note here. If you also want to see another or hear, if you're listening to this, if you want to see or hear another podcast episode of me discussing WEF shutdown, and I go into full detail as to why that happened, what happened during the final stages, and what happened afterwards, I can do that too if you want me to. But yeah, I wanted to practice submissions before mine and his match, okay? And he chose not to do submissions. Now, if you go, hang on, I want to say it's episode 8, but let me find out. If you go to WEF's YouTube channel, okay, and you watch episode, if you go to WEF's YouTube channel and you watch episode 8 of WEF Strikeout, that was the final match that I had for WEF. It wasn't the final appearance, I don't think. It was the final match, and it was against Swamp Man, who is played by Elijah. So if you watch that match, there's a spot in the match where it looks like I'm going for a single leg Boston Crab, but because this guy didn't teach me how to do the Boston Crab properly, I fucked it up. And honestly, I hate watching that spot in the match because it kind of makes me cringe a little bit, knowing that I fucked up that bad because he didn't teach me how to do submissions prior to the match. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. If he didn't teach you any submissions, then why go for submissions in the match? If you don't know any submissions, then why'd you go for submissions? Well, because I also didn't learn any ground moves either. Thanks, Elijah. Didn't learn any ground moves either. I only learned one or two. Yet I remember there was a spot in the match. Because if you've ever watched Lumberjack wrestle, he does this move a lot. What he does is he grabs your leg and he holds it up, and then he drops his leg onto it, like slamming it into the canvas. I don't know what it's called. I don't really know what to call that move, but I'm hoping you know what I'm talking about. He did it in our TBW match. Well, he taught me how to do that. Yet, during the match that I had with Swamp Man, again, who was Elijah, when I did that in the match with Swamp Man, after the match, he was complaining to Chris that I did one of his moves. Elijah, did your dumbass forget you taught me how to do that move? If you teach me something, expect me to do it. That's like a geography teacher saying, hey, this is where you live. This is the country that you live in. This is the continent that you live in. And then saying, but when you graduate school, you actually live in Europe. I did not teach you that you live in America. I don't know where you learned that. You live in Europe. You don't live in America. You live in Europe, okay? You live in Scotland. You don't live in Europe. Wait, no. You don't live in America. You live in Scotland. That's like a geography teacher saying that. But Elijah was like, oh, I taught you this? Yeah, don't do it. And that was the issue that I had with WEF. In fact, I blame Elijah for the reason my career went downhill so fast. And another insight, so I was learning how to do one of my finishers, which was the Dirty Deeds, or Death Rider, as it's called now. Basically, it's a butterfly DDT, or double underhook DDT. And I was wanting to use that when I was the Animal. And I was wanting to call it Devour. Well, this was during a match that unfortunately never got uploaded to the WEF YouTube channel. Fun fact, there's about 3 matches that I've had that never got uploaded to the WEF YouTube channel. Kind of sucks considering they don't have the footage for that anymore. If they did, I would have asked them to send it to me so I could upload it. It would be like an unseen match. I'd upload it on the RUW channel. So there was a match that me and him were doing. Again, never got uploaded to WEF. And that was the first time that I was actually supposed to use the double underhook DDT as a finisher. What we had planned during the match is he was going to go for a suplex, and I was going to counter the suplex and hit the Devour. Prior to this match, no one taught me how to do the Devour. No one taught me how to do the double underhook DDT. Keep this in mind. We get into the match. We get to the spot. I counter the suplex, and then Elijah's like, hit your finisher. So I'm like, okay. Boom. I get him hooked. I drop him down. I thought it looked fine. It turns out I wasn't supposed to this is going to sound weird out of context because I know how inappropriate some people can be, but like seriously, grow up. The way I went down, I thought it looked fine because he landed on his head like he was supposed to. Turns out I wasn't supposed to spread my legs in the way that I did. Because what happened was when I dropped him, I had my legs out like this. And then his groin, okay, went right into my knee. And I didn't know it until after I had hit the move. And I was going to pin him, okay. I didn't realize it, but he was like, oh, fuck my balls. And then they had to stop recording to give him time to recover. And then after he recovered, he got up and he was like, you're not supposed to spread your legs that far. You're supposed to keep them together. And I'm like, you never taught me how to do this move properly, so this is kind of on you. Yeah. Oh. And that reminds me, the influence, okay? We all remember RUW's influence, okay? It was me, Mark Jones, Drake Danger, Ghost, who is now known as Poison, and James Wrestling. But I don't count James Wrestling because he didn't do fucking shit in RUW. So technically it was me, Mark Jones, Drake Danger, and Ghost. 4 people I'm close with, okay? Drake Danger being my own brother. I've known Mark Jones for like 3 years now. And Ghost, I've known him since I was in like 2nd grade. So yeah, people I was pretty close with, people that I had known for a while. Right, that was RUW's influence. After the influence split up in RUW, I decided, hey, WEF, we should bring the influence here to WEF. I want to make a whole faction. Let's do it. So they were like, okay, I agree. Let's do it. Let's make the influence in WEF using you and some WEF talent. And I was like, sick. Okay? Well, Elijah steps in and didn't even let me pick who I wanted to be in the influence. And I'm going to let y'all know who I originally wanted in the influence. Me, obviously. I'm the leader of the group. Chris Nitro, Jackal, and Trenton Crusher. That is who I wanted in the influence. Who did Elijah go with? Me, Toxic, and Swamp Man. Now, I have no issue with Toxic. Toxic's cool. Why Swamp Man, though? I could let it slide if it was Lumberjack, okay? If you were using the Lumberjack gimmick in the influence, I could let it slide. But Swamp Man? Really? If you've ever watched WEF, this goes for anyone listening or watching on the Alexander Kelly YouTube channel. If you've ever watched WEF, have you seen the Swamp Man character? The gimmick, okay, is not very smart. Me, the way my leadership role in the influence was I was supposed to take people who weren't getting booked that well and putting them in the group, okay? Taking them under my wing, okay? Teaching them what I know so they can be better, okay? Chris Nitro had just lost his Macho Man Championship, so I wanted to have him in the group, help him get back to being the status of a world champion, help him back up to the title. Jackal, had won the Big Rumble. Okay? I was supposed to help him get a shot at the Macho Man Championship, even though he had technically already earned it. Trenton Crusher was the Macho Man champion, but I felt like something was missing. So I was going to ignite that spark in him, get him built up just a little bit more, so he can actually be seen as a credible champion. Okay? Now, those were the people who I wanted in the influence, as I mentioned. Okay? Now, Toxic was only getting booked in triple threat matches. Okay? Wasn't really getting booked well. Wasn't really seen as credible, and was kind of seen as a filler opponent. Well, that's why I, quotation marks for the people who are not watching the video version of this, that is why, quotation marks, I brought him into the influence, even though I didn't choose him. Okay? Elijah chose him. And Swamp Man, well, look at his character. Losing streak, doing dumb shit all the time to lose, acts like a fucking moron in the ring. Is that any good reason to have Swamp Man in the group? No. And I blame Elijah as the main reason my career in WEF went downhill so fast. The animal, Alexander Souls, was supposed to be the toughest version of me, of Alexander. Until it got fucking shat on by Elijah. Thank you. Part of that was sarcastic, but part of that was actually genuine. The sarcasm was, thank you for fucking up my WEF career. Thank you for not teaching me fucking shit. And have a good day. The real part of that is, thank you for ruining the animal, because now you've allowed me to create this character, Bad Attitude Alexander Kelly. Quite frankly, it's been a couple years. We have a comment. Who is Elijah? I mentioned this earlier in the stream. Elijah is the man behind the Lumberjack and Swamp Man characters in both WEF and RUW. I blame him for being the sole reason that my career in WEF crashed hard. But that is who Elijah is. He is the man behind the Lumberjack and Swamp Man characters. But yeah. My main issue / problem, even though they mean the same thing, with WEF was Elijah Hayes, the man behind the Lumberjack and Swamp Man characters. And the reason I completely name dropped him is because WEF ain't fucking coming back, okay? And when, capital WHEN, when RUW comes back and is able to do shows again, trust me when I say Elijah Hayes is not going to be a part of it. Because I've had it with him. I've had it with his dumbass gimmicks. And I don't want him anywhere near my product. Because he will try to make it all about him, because he's so egotistical and so self-centered that I don't want him anywhere near it. But for those of you listening on Apple Podcasts, I apologize if I said Apple Music earlier. If you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else aside from the YouTube channel, I'm going to end it here. If you are watching on the YouTube channel, I'm going to continue the stream to answer comments that anyone may have. So if you're listening, deuces. All right. So if anyone has any questions, that they want me to answer about the whole thing with Elijah slash lumberjack slash swamp man. If you have anything you need me to answer, I would definitely do that. Bro. We have another question from Cooperative Cam. What happened to Ben Dover in REW? He was cool. Hate to break it to you, pal, but if you thought he was cool, mm, mm. But let me tell you what happened to him. He and El Chapo in REW treated this whole thing like a joke. Plus, they admitted that they didn't want to be trained. But that was back then. I'm going to say this right now. 3 years later, if you want to be trained, here's what I want you to do. Take this shit seriously and let me train you. You don't own me. Don't sit here and think I don't fucking know shit. Because guess what? Unlike you, I've been here, done that. Let me teach you what I know. So what happened to Ben? He was released. And so was El Chapo. Completely fired from RUW. If they want a second chance, they need to fucking prove themselves and actually be willing to do shit. But yeah, that's what happened to him. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Episode published. Yeah. Accurate. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns regarding, well, anything? Anything that has to do with my wrestling career? Why did all my banners get taken away? Can I change this? Oh, edit name and headline. if you want me to. Man, I've got a lot of podcast episodes in store. Because now, here's another idea. This question right here, what happened to Ben Dover? If you'd like me to, I could go into depth from start to finish of Ben and El Chapo's career here in RUW and why they no longer work here. I could go into depth with that if you'd like in another podcast episode. But currently there's no one watching the stream. Cooperative Cam, thank you for the comments and the questions. Thank you for tuning in, if you did. And I will catch y'all in the next one. Deuces. Oh, one more thing before I end this. If you want to listen to the audio version of this, check out the RUW Behind the Scenes podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Check that out. And yeah, that'll just about do it. Thank you for tuning in if you did, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Deuces.